Recording. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for our very first Career Connect panel. My name is Nicole Marconi. I'm the Access Services Manager here at the Hoboken Public Library, and I've asked two of my former classmates from the Yale School of Drama, now the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale, yes, to join me on this panel, and I'm super excited for both of them to be here. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll let both of them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa K. Howard. I was a fellow class of 2013 member with both Nicole and Geoff, and I'm here because I'm a stage manager.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Geoff. I am actually the current, well, I guess interim head of BFA stage management at the Pennsylvania State University and State College, PA, as well as a freelance stage manager and events organizer in New York City. So I split time back and forth. As these two lovely ladies have told you, I spent a lot of time with them at the what is now the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale, and had a great time, and we've stayed fam ever since. And just grateful to be here. Thank you so much for organizing this, Nicole.
Awesome, thank you both for being here. I'm so excited to see you both, even if it's just virtually. So I'm just gonna go through some questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt in the meantime, but I'm gonna try to get as much in as we can before 5 o'clock when the library closes. So first question, can you both tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background and how you got into theater in the first place?
Yeah, I'll pop off with, I'm originally from upstate New York, up near Albany, where there's actually both a very, very active community theater scene up there, as well as in Schenectady, very nearby, a touring house where a bunch of national tours would go through. And so I got very interested in mostly through musicals, interested in theater. My family took me to see shows. We had Broadway musical soundtracks like Phantom of the Opera at our house, and so I got exposed to theater that way. And I imagined I loved theater so much, and I imagined that I would be a performer. Just as a kid, thinking about the types of theater positions that I was aware of. It's like, oh, there are performers, and I guess there's a director. Someone maybe writes it. I don't know, theoretically. And so I was active as a performer in our community theater scene, and with some friends of mine who started our own theater group where we self-produced our own shows. And then when I got into, but by the time I was going into undergrad, not through any pressure from my family, but just through myself, said, I'm going to have a lot of fun and avail myself of all the artistic resources and opportunities in undergrad, but I'm going to get a sensible major so that I can get an actual real job when I graduate. So I continued being on stage, and then about halfway through undergrad, an alum who was a designer, but also a freelance stage manager during the J term. So we did one class in January that was meant to, pass or fail, just to expand your horizons and be part of the, social life of the college. And she did a course on stage management. So I'm like, oh, I remember coming to undergrad, the first stage manager they had, very different from the people who were called stage managers in the community theater and high school theater that I'd done. They were doing like so much more, and people seemed to really respect this person, and they seemed really cool. So I'm like, all right, I'll learn that. And I did learn it, and I'm like, oh, this seems really cool. I seem to have a little bit of a knack for it. So when I did not get cast in the next show that I auditioned for the theater department, on the little audition form, if you're not cast in the show, would you be willing to work wardrobe or build the set, stage manage? I said, you know what? I did a really good job in 1 month of pretending to stage manage a show out of a textbook. Why don't I do this? So I did, and it was actually, it was at Williams College, and it was actually, they were building the new Performing Arts Center that's currently there. So I actually stage managed the very first production in their Black Box Theater at the Performing Arts Center at Williams College. And I said, that was great. I loved doing it. I had such a great time, and I am never doing this again because I got no sleep. My grades went down into the toilet. All right, that's enough for me. And then I went and joined choir. Then, you know, that I kept to that for a couple of months, and I actually did go back the next semester after that. I dropped out of choir. But I was, you know, working with light board and some electric stuff. And then one of the directors from the department said, hey, you know, would you be the stage manager for this show that, you know, this next department show? And it turned out that I am just very weak to flattery and feeling needed. So I said yes, and I continued to stage manage through the rest of my undergrad time. Still with the feeling that, like, you know, this is so well and good, I'll still get a real person job and, you know, do community theater on the side to sort of scratch that itch once I graduate. Graduated into the economy of 2007. And so the job I ended up getting was as the music director and pipe organist at a church, because I did play pipe organ. And so that at least gave me a very fairly small niche that I had the unique ability to fill. And so there I was doing work that was based in art, that was interacting with, you know, an audience or a community. And I still found myself feeling very much something's missing. I'm not happy. And at that point, I just said to myself, you know what? I am 22 years old. I don't currently have, you know, any dependents or, you know, locked down in any one location. If I'm going to give this a try, I might as well give it a try now. And so that's when I went back to my undergrad, asked them, you know, hey, what do I do now? So I did an apprenticeship, a season-long apprenticeship at the Orlando Shakespeare Theater, which is a small but professional theater. And for me, my very first experience working in a professional theater was perfect for me. And I got a lot of great experience and learned so much. I said, all right, I think that this might be the thing. Did another internship year, this time at the McCarter Theater in Princeton, New Jersey, much larger theater. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I think this is it. I think I'm going to do it. I enjoy this. And I think I have a handle for both the job itself, but also the life that happens around it. But because I took a grand total of, I think, like 1.5 theater courses in my entire undergrad career. I was a pre-med English major, music minor. I did not actually study theater because I did not intend to devote myself to it professionally. I said, you know what? I think I probably should go back to school. So I went to grad school, came out of there after 3 years into New York City, and I have been working as a freelance stage manager in New York ever since.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. That was a great, very detailed answer. Geoff, do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah. First of all, Alyssa, I just learned so much about you that I didn't know. And again, I reiterate, Alyssa's much cooler than me in many respects. Nicole agrees. So I actually started I had a weird track into stage management. Unlike many stage managers, I had no aspect of performance whatsoever. I had zero interest. I thought it was just something that, was not up my alley. And I didn't understand theater as a concept, really. In North Carolina, where I grew up in a suburban, for lack of a better phrase, tumor of the capital of North Carolina. So I grew up in Cary, North Carolina. There was a robust theater scene at our high school, but not a lot of theater in the community. There's only one performing arts center that ended up opening up about a decade and a half ago. And then other than that, there really isn't anything. So I didn't have a lot of experience. Our high school theater program was good in that we were well funded, but obviously high school is high school. It's always tough to sort of get, you're not going to win any Tonys while you're in high school without a lot of education. But I actually ended up working in the scene shop. Well, it was the carpentry class, and the teacher for that, our carpentry teacher, who still teaches there to this day, was a very, very dear friend of mine. used to build the sets and used to get involved in that in the technical theater aspect. And he was a very, very charismatic leader of students. Like, students just wanted to do well for him as a teacher and everything like that. And so he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, Geoff, I need some help building Annie. Will you, come in and just, get stuff done?" And I was like, "Great." And I was a peppy sophomore and just wanted something to do after school, because in Cary at that time, there really wasn't that much going on. You either went to the mall, did drugs, or played football. And I didn't like to go to the mall. I didn't have any money because I was poor. I didn't like to do drugs. And I didn't play football. So it was kind of like just hanging out in the shop with my friends, who were part of the scene, part of the tech theater crew there, in my sophomore year. And so one day, while we were building Annie, well, we built Annie, sorry. The next show was Music Man. We were building it, and Kimbo is the teacher's name, came to me. Kevin Kimberly, he's a lovely man, but we called him Kimbo for short. Came to me and he said, "Geoff, I don't know what it is, but we have seniors and we have juniors, but for some reason everyone just listens to you as a sophomore. I don't know what that is." And he asked me if I wouldn't mind stage managing, and I said, "I have no idea what that is." And he's like, "You just boss people around backstage." And I said, "Sure, that sounds like fun." And so we did Music Man, and then that just started me getting more and more interested. And suddenly it was like I was in charge of everyone all the time, whether we were building it, whether we were running it or striking it or whatever. And that just kind of really appealed to me, and hanging out with my friends and just building sets and doing the running of shows. So I finished high school, and I determined, along with a couple of my friends, that we were going to try and apply to a not insignificant art school in North Carolina, whose name has also changed over the past couple of years, so I'm not going to name it. And they flat out turned me down for stage management, flat out turned me down, and also turned my friend down. And I hold no grudges whatsoever. And I ended up going to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, which also turned into a lot of kind of learning on our own. There was no actual stage management program. It was like, learn your craft and just don't screw up to not get yelled at. And the craft of stage management is much, much better taught there now. But there wasn't really anything. So it was kind of like learning through osmosis of your peers and kind of coming up through the ranks and everything like that. Maybe reading a book every now and then and having like a discussion with your teacher who is not a stage manager, but is a lighting designer and production manager. And so that kind of led to me wanting to figure out grad school. And I knew that I was good enough to be dangerous, but I did not think I was good enough to be successful. And nobody dissuaded me. So I kind of went and just applied, got in, much to my surprise. They actually, I was graduating, and I had gone to this conference a decade ago, or over a decade ago, that I'm currently with my students at now. And I found out on my birthday that I was getting in. So it was like kind of such a strange situation. And I was just like, I remember being in an alley in Lexington, Kentucky, having just left a hotel where I interviewed for a year-round job. And I was like, "Oh, there's nobody here. Okay. And did 3 years there at the what is now the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale. I'm going to say that as many times as I can on this call. And graduated after having a lot of fun there with my fellow colleagues there, and moved to New York City and started freelancing. I've now shifted a little bit away from theater, as you can tell, into teaching. However, this is just a year-long contract, and then I'm back to the city. And I'm primarily going to be pushing myself into the events world and really taking some time over there, because there's a lot of fun to be had stage managing events. So yeah, that's kind of my journey right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Geoff. I just want to reiterate for people who just joined us, thank you so much for joining. The reason that I invited Alyssa and Geoff particularly is that we all went to the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale together. So I also have a background in stage management. Yeah, we all have a background in stage management, and I used to stage manage as well, and I still do occasionally when I'm not spending all my life at the library. So I want to talk a little bit about grad school and sort of why you chose to go to grad school, because the sort of debate in the field is that, as a stage manager, do you need to bother with the master's degree? Do you not need to bother? I know personally from my own experience that I was thinking when I applied to Yale that I was going to teach one day. So that was super important to me to get the master's degree, but I want to hear from Alyssa and Geoff on sort of what they think. And you guys can discuss it. You don't have to go one one for one if you want.
Well, I'll take a stab at that to start. So I actually have already put my degree to use, in that I knew that at the end of my career, when I didn't want to do, not the end of my career, but later on in life, when I have kids and get to that point where I want a little more stability, good insurance, all of that, I knew that I wanted to teach. So the master's from Yale gave me what is known as a terminal degree, which means I can teach at any point in my life, and I have a fancy piece of paper that says I know how to do that. And this is my first year teaching, and I can tell you right now that paper is a lie. That paper is absolutely a lie. It's a lot of figuring things out and listening to your colleagues and everything like that. But just to also reiterate, when I left undergrad, because stage management at that time wasn't considered like a craft per se to be taught, like you just kind of came up through the ranks, at least in my area and the people I worked with, I just didn't know enough. And I really, really wanted to go to grad school to learn as much as I could and build a muscle memory that I didn't even think I could get. So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it in telling my journey. Like I guess similar to Geoff, like I did not have any sort of rigorous instruction background, even if that had been my plan. My undergrad was a small liberal arts college, so it wasn't a place where you would really receive dedicated stage management instruction. And I did also have in the practicality in the back of my mind of, terminal degree will qualify me to, take a teaching job if I want. The irony of that has ended up being that I've had a few opportunities for teaching jobs come up over the years. And so far I've turned them all down, just because for me, I've ended up where the freelance project side of the career has been much more appealing to me, and at least is at this point in my life. The specific reason that I chose a school that I did, I was interested in the fact that one of the great things about the school is it has all of the different departments there. And so it's not like, oh, your stage manager's there, but you're basically just supporting the playwrights that they have or supporting the actors. It's being able to network with all of the directors, designers, writers, managers that are your peers of your generation in the industry. I wanted to be able to do that. And, also for me, I wanted, I know you can go to New York and you learn by experience. But I was erring on the side of caution, like, once you're out there professionally, though, sometimes you just got to take a job, even if it's not the job that would necessarily give you the experience that you need educationally. It's like, I'd rather, for me, the investment that I was luckily able to make is that I want 3 years of taking jobs that are all relevant to my professional development. And that's what grad school was able to do for me. And it also has the wonderful thing is, as opposed to many professional environments where it's okay and even expected sometimes, it's that here, take on this project and you're allowed to fail. As opposed to in the press world, you really don't want to take on a project and fail on it. That's not good. And so I appreciated that aspect of what an academic environment offered. So for me, it was 100% the right decision. But also, would always be in support of saying it's not the right decision for everyone. Some people, no, you don't need it if it's not aligning, if it's not giving you something specific that you need that you aren't getting elsewhere, or it doesn't align with where you want your career to go. In that case, there's no need to put the time and money into making that investment if it's not aligning with what you need and what you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Follow-up question. Do you think that you picked the right time to go to grad school, that it sort of fell into your lap at the right time, or do you think that you should have waited, or any of that? I mean, I definitely waited till after being out of undergrad for like a couple of years, and that was the right decision for me. I was so done with school when I got out of undergrad that grad school seemed like a never it's going to happen sort of thing. So can you guys talk a little bit about that as well?
I mean, I was the baby in the program when I got in there.
And I was the old one.
I went right after undergrad. And I've got to say, for me at the time, again, it was the right decision to make, to go right to grad school and learn more, because I essentially learned how to stage manage in grad school. Because our program was so unorganized, it was like I understood root concepts, but I didn't understand how to actually professionally market myself. I didn't understand basic paperwork skills. I didn't understand, I didn't understand a lot, pardon my language. So I needed that education. I needed an actual education to actually go and feel like I could competently enter the workforce as a professional stage manager.
And I was, so let's see, it was, I think, 3 years out of undergrad for me. And yeah, no, I definitely feel that was the right, place in my timeline for a variety of reasons. One is that I think through the internships that I did have a fairly good grasp on the basics of stage management, thanks to the great supervisor and mentors that I had. But because it's like, okay, yeah, I can stage manage, but I literally have not had theater 101. And so even just, the basic theater history and all that, I needed to get all of that still. And then also for me, an advantage that I found that I had is that I had gotten also certain just life things out of the way at that point, just by virtue of time. And so the advantage I had, once we got into those, again, Theater 101, I'm like, oh gosh, it's been a while since I've had to take an exam. And so I kind of lost a little momentum on that end of things and needed to remember like how to study and take tests. But on the other hand, I had gotten, a lot of non-school and non-professional related like life lessons out of the way. So I didn't have to deal with that on top of doing all of the actual school stuff at the time. And particularly in my case, I had some chronic illness issues when I finished up out of undergrad. And so part of it was also taking time to combination of recover / learn how I needed to structure my life to be able to function successfully in general, and also specifically for such this kind of, high octane activity. And so it was really the time that I needed to be able to come in prepared for success.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense to me as well. Yeah, we all figured out in our own, we were all in our program, we were all a year apart. But we all sort of figured out we all wanted to go to grad school at different times, which is, which happens. So my big question that we'll sort of leave off with this is that how have your careers changed, pre-pandemic, like during the pandemic? I mean, people say we're going towards the end of the pandemic now. For me, as you surprised, I changed careers completely right before the pandemic. So that's how my life changed. How would you guys describe your pre and, I guess during and maybe soon to be post, pandemic careers?
Geoff, you're muted.
I said, Alyssas has just gotten better. That's for sure. So I pivoted how did I have this? I have the dubious honor of being the first stage manager, equity union approved stage manager to work in the pandemic in May of 2020 when we had no vaccine. And that was at Barrington Stage Company with the show Harry Clark. Godspell was down the road. I think that one will take the history books because technically they opened first, but we previewed first. So we had the first audience. And we had contract required 6 previews required. They only had 1 preview and then opened. So they rushed it to take the gold. But yeah.
And Geoff, just Geoff, just for people who don't know, where is Barrington Stage
It's
Company?
it's in Western Massachusetts, in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Lovingly, we're part of what is called the Tour de Berkshires, of all the giant summer theater scene that takes place down the same highway, which is Williamstown to the north, Barrington Stage in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Berkshire Theater Group, which is kind of spread all over the place, who did Godspell down the road from us, and Shakes and Co. a little bit further down the road. There's Jacob's Pillow. There's a whole bunch of really great folks out in the Western Mass. So if you want a summer somewhere nice, head on out there to see some theater. And so in terms of the pandemic, it was kind of like, I just remember being like, okay, it was like 30 of us in the entire institution. We were all staying in different houses, but it was kind of like the Wild West. We didn't know if we were going to get sick and die, but we wanted to do this. And we did. We pulled it off successfully with no COVID that year, which is great because they ended up getting COVID the next year. And now they're going to be back to full operation this year in the summer. And so I sort of finished there, and I was like, man, I'm ready to sort of not hit the freelance world a little bit. And this job popped up at Penn State after somebody retired. And it was a 1-year only contract, so it had what I called a guaranteed exit, which was kind of nice to just dip your feet in, spend a year, and then lo and behold, Omicron hit New York City. So I still kind of feel like I hit the right time to go ahead and skedaddle for a little bit. But I've still worked professionally back and forth, bouncing back between the cities, mainly doing events and everything like that. A couple of readings online. So I'm excited to get back to that this summer and specifically into events this coming year. So yeah.
I kind of went in the other, I'd say, main pandemic direction that when the pandemic hit, and I'm actually like looking at the date right now, I'm like, oh, we had for the show I'd been working at the time, Nollywood Dreams at MCC. It was Thursday, March 12th. We had our designer run through that day, our last run through in the rehearsal room. Had a great run through, took a break, and then the manager said, "We gather everyone together for a meeting after the break."
Oh no!
Okay.
And that was Sahim, right? Sahim directed that one.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
We were
And
the 59th canceled Whisper House that day. We had first preview Thursday, March 12th. So 2 years to the day. That show is now open and running, by the way, or at least it ran.
Wow. 2 years, guys. 2 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I laid low for a while. I mean, I'd been very lucky in that things had been chugging along quite busily at the time. And then suddenly I was like, actually, not that I would have chosen this, but I could use a little break. And then I went into onto the virtual side of things, into the computer. It wasn't so much the, trying to produce the make theater on Zoom, but there was a lot of very fertile work happening using Zoom as the platform for having workshops, being able to get the writers in and hear the play and discuss it. Things that would normally be like getting a bunch of people in a room to sit around the table. Yes, on the one hand, you do lose something from the vibe, and also with Zoom, particularly at that point, being able to have people talk on top of each other. But also that meant that we were able to gather groups of people that otherwise would not have been able to. We were able to do this play with, wonderful actors out in Chicago with the playwrights in New York, or, literally people from all the country and from different countries. I think this one workshop, developmental workshop we were doing, and we're like, it seems like this actor's, their internet access is a little, someone's like, I think I heard he's in Ghana right now. So that was actually an amazing resource that we discovered. Oh, we actually do have a way to jump over these geographical barriers to get these great collaborations going. So I did support work in that, and was a little actually more on the virtual event side and helping support virtual events like film screenings. Did a summit for a teen advocacy group at one point. I also did some of my own just, self-producing, some private events, sort of like customized creative parties online. And so got to have a lot of, continue to do some work online that was not trying to replicate something that could not be replicated, which was what I kind of shied away from. And yeah, then I was very fortunate to actually come back with Nollywood Dreams, the show that had gone on pause this past fall. And funnily enough, and also the next show after that I'm currently on was also a 2020 show that got put on pause and is now getting its life again. And so I've had a lot of very strange full circle experiences between the pandemic hitting and then us making our way to a couple years later. And in some cases, like with Nollywood, we pretty much did the show almost exactly, some tweaks and, things continue to develop, but pretty much exactly the show we planned. Current show that I'm doing was almost entirely reconceptualized, and a lot of new people on that team because, the director said, it's 2 years later. I want to do a different, not really interested in what we were doing 2 years ago in a very different world. And so it's been interesting being to juxtapose those two different, I don't want to say, but those two different later pandemic experiences.
Got it. Thanks, Alyssa. So I just want to make sure we leave time for any questions anybody has, but can you both just tell me what you love about stage managing? Because I'm always curious, even though I think I know, but feel free to tell me.
Alyssa, you can go first.
Oh gosh. All right. I mean, my sort of glib answer is that I'm just nosy as all heck. And so one of the things I love about stage management is it's actually your job to be involved in everyone's business, to know what everyone is doing, understand what everyone is doing, and make sure that that all fits together. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then also coming from my background in music, the thing that I usually, if I am asked to, what's your philosophy or style of stage management, my elevator pitch is that I view it in musical terms. I used to do a lot of work as an accompanist, like piano accompanying others. And, I feel like stage management is a lot the same way in a more literal sense. When you're calling a show, calling the cues, having to time that out and be in the same rhythm. But even on a more figurative level, being able to, be on that same wavelength with how everyone is working and being able to provide that structured support underneath that is something that they can always count on and go back to, but that ultimately has to deal with the reality of what is actually happening to the folks who are in the spotlight.
Such a better answer than I have.
You told me to go first.
I did. I enjoy stage management for many, many reasons. Number one, I'm not a performer, but I enjoy the arts. So this is kind of like a really wonderful opportunity to get in there. I am not musically talented in any way, shape, or form. I do not read music. It is a mystery, alien language to me. I understand, boom, boom, boom. That's what I understand. But I really got into it and stayed with it because I think that theater has such an astounding power to tap into the soul of a community, let alone a nation, but a community at the very least. I sort of have garnered a career history of always working on new high intensity productions of something. You don't call me, I don't do Shakespeare, not because I don't like to, but because the offers I keep getting are just new works. I don't do big musicals or anything like that are just fun and happy times. I do shows that like to rock you a little bit. And for lack of a phrase, the arrogant way to say it would be shows that matter, shows that mean something, that not only entertain you, but make you think when you leave. We certainly, there are people who would come and see shows that are in this nation that would go, oh, that was so offensive. However, if we made you think, then that's what we care about. I have found those productions to mean so much more to me. So because I can't act, and I'm not necessarily the person that can like do the giant fundraising job or anything like that, this is something that has really resonated with me because I get to be who I am. You hire a stage manager for who they are. Anybody can make paperwork. Anyone can, make the drafts that I do, possibly maintain a script, but what you bring to the table is Alyssa. What you bring to the table is Nicole. What you bring to the table is Geoff. And it becomes an important task for every individual stage manager to sort of find who they are in their process. That's something that I've learned in education. Like, I'm like, okay, here is a draft of a paper. How does it work for you? How do you want to enter a room? How do you want to approach any situation? The way Alyssa and Nicole approach situations are 1 billion% different than the way I would approach a situation. And I kind of like that individuality in the craft, because we both get to measure our successes and we both get to be who we want to be. And yeah, everything is our business. She phrases it as everything is our business. I say everything is our problem. And I'm sure Nicole would go somewhere in between us and say everything is your challenge. I think I can count on my hand on one hand, the number of times I've looked at any situation that has been brought to me and said, that is thoroughly not my job to solve. Because there just is it's always us. And I've never thought of myself as a conductor, but I guess if I am a conductor, I'm a trained conductor as opposed to a music conductor. So that is always a lot of fun, is just watching that whole thing come together and knowing that the show can never be about you, but the show can't happen without you.
It's that what you were saying, Geoff, was really resonating with me. And it is the sense of when you're doing work that you believe in, and it can be sometimes, and sometimes it is, let's bring joy to people,
Sure.
or especially, or, even better, let's give voice to joy for voices that aren't usually given the opportunity for joy. It does feel like a way to make a contribution, and to put your strengths and efforts to a place where they can actually do something.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you both said. And yeah, that definitely, we all three of us are, obviously we went through the same program, we had the same training, but like we come at situations and problem solving completely differently. And Geoff is right. You hire the stage manager because of who they are and not because of just like, you can make like a nice looking schedule, which yes, we can make those too. We do. And we have. I think for me, we do, and we have. But like, I think for me, the best part of stage managing, and this is really selfish, but it's when you have to call a really hard sequence, lights, sounds, projection, actors coming in and off, set pieces moving around, and you nail it. And it's just the best feeling ever. It's so good. And there's nothing better than that. And then you stand up in your chair, you'll probably yell into your headset, which you're not supposed to do, with joy, those kinds of moments that just, you can't, Alyssa and Geoff know what I'm talking about. You can't replicate that feeling of just pure, like, you did your job so well in this moment. That I miss. I don't get that as a librarian, not gonna lie. I get it in different ways, but not quite like that. But
you're not standing up at your desk and yelling.
I did it.
Yelling, I did it. I ordered more books today. It's great.
What are your coworkers not letting you do?
No, I did have a moment like that today, actually, but not. Yeah, whatever. It actually had to do with theater, but not with this. Anyway, that's going off topic. So thank you both so much for doing this. Does anyone have any questions or anything that you want to, ask to our amazing panelists? Ethan, yeah, see you.
Yeah, I just have a comment, because I come from theater from an acting and a directing background and musical theater as well. So, and I value and appreciate stage managers, but I have no flair for it at all. I did it once and did it very badly. I was asked to fill it in last minute because the stage manager of a community play I was involved in dropped out last minute. And the director asked me if I would fill in because I was producing the play. And I said, sure, I'll attempt this. But I think you either have a flair for it or you don't. And I'm more used to being on the stage, being the performer or directing the play, being more involved in the artistic aspect. Whereas I think a stage manager is more involved in the technical aspects of all behind the scenes. And that's wonderful, but it's just, I think you either have a flair for it or you don't. I know I don't. So that's why I stayed with acting and directing, and I didn't get involved in staging. Yeah.
And
But I do. Yeah.
Ethan, that actually gets me to thinking with connecting with something that with Nicole and Geoff were saying about it being more than just pretty paperwork, is that I think there is sometimes a mistaken belief, and I see it sometimes aimed towards younger folks, where it's just like, oh, well, you can put together a piece of pretty paperwork and you can be organized, and so you must be the stage, you must be a stage manager type, and that's not necessarily the case. Not to put down like being organized and making pretty paperwork, but I feel like sometimes there's this notion that pigeonholes like, oh, so that means that you're a stage manager. And I've sometimes, because sometimes you work and you get younger folks who are working as your interns, or this is your assistant, and you find yourself thinking somewhat, like, this person has been given this idea of what stage management is. It's like, I don't think they've been given the full picture.
Yeah, that's definitely something we try, at least three of us tried to, dispel as we were working, that like, where you don't just like tell people when the breaks are. We don't just, tell people where the coffee is. Like, we don't just make the coffee, those kinds of situations.
We are in fact people.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we have to sort of dispel. I mean, the same with librarians, right, Ethan? It's like, we just have to dispel those, like, those rumors of like, we just tell people to shush. Yeah, like, so those kinds of things. So, I mean, in any profession, stage management, especially though, where it's like, no, I mean, I think of us, and I think Alyssa and Geoff would agree that we are, artistic collaborators as well. Like, we don't just like write down the blocking and like, tell people to, go over there. It's sort of, there's more art to it than that. And a good stage manager knows the difference of like, you're just doing like sort of what is asked of you versus I am contributing to this production with my artistic, talents and vision as well. Even if I'm not the director, I'm not the set designer, I'm not the music director, but I can also say I have input into that vision as well.
And
you as a stage manager are in charge of the backstage, essentially what happens backstage, all the props and the actors putting their costumes on, and all that. You're in charge of all that, which is a wonderful, valuable skill, I think. It really is.
And also on stage too, to some effect, like, so if you're running a show that's gone for a while, like having to watch people's performances and maintain them, it's like, I feel like that, this moment performance wise, sometimes you do need to give notes that are more along the acting directing side of things. I think we have a question.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. I didn't want to interrupt you, Alyssa, but yeah, I mean, you guys can answer this too, but it's more about just getting experience. I mean, Alyssa and Geoff both have, all three of us are today have all done like internships and like been production assistants on shows. And that is, I mean, in the pandemic time, things might be a little different now, but that is the best experience you can get. And, she can definitely reach out to me, and, I can throw my email in the chat. I'm sure Geoff and Alyssa wouldn't mind throwing their emails in the chat as well. And, just say, hey, I'm interested in being a PA on a show, or like, I'm interested in, getting some experience. And that's the best thing, because until you do it, and I'm sure Alyssa and Geoff would agree, that you just don't know what it's going to be. Newsies is a great show. It's so much dancing, so many newspapers. So, but things like that get you ready for the other shows that have like one prop and like two actors in them that are, a little less intense. Alyssa and Geoff, feel free to jump in.
I unmuted myself. I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if that was allowed. So, but now I said, yeah, you know what? She loves the theater. Like, she comes alive. Like, I feel like a star, because people were coming up to me. They couldn't believe that was her. She just started high school at Mount St. Dominic, and they couldn't believe that was her because they didn't know her. But we've always known she comes alive on the stage. But she's done a lot with like theater, like helping with like, stage crew. So yeah, well, I would love to get your email so she could figure out like how she can like, learn more, like, I guess, be an apprentice or intern or whatever, but we don't know about those opportunities. Yeah.
So I just threw my email in the chat, Joan. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure Alyssa and Geoff would be happy to share theirs as well, or their contact information or whatever. But yeah, it's just getting the experience, I think. So, even if it's, doing theater in high school is great. I mean, I did theater in high school. I was in the pit orchestra from a lot of the time, but yeah, it's just getting all that experience. So yeah. Are there other questions for any of our panelists before we sort of wrap up in a couple minutes? I just wanted to make sure there was enough time for everybody to speak. Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks, Geoff, for throwing your emails in there. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I just want to say again, thank you so much to everybody for coming on a Friday afternoon. And, thank you so much to Geoff and Alyssa for basically hanging out with me for a little over an hour. And because we were talking about, before everyone else came on the call, that we haven't seen each other like physically in almost 2 years. Yeah,
I drive through Jersey. I haven't stopped in Jersey.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, but it's great to see you, both of you, and I hope to see you both in person again soon. But thank you to everybody for coming. We're doing another Career Connect panel next Friday at the same time, and this one is a hybrid, so it's going to be on Zoom and in person at the Hoboken Public Library. So if anybody is interested, please come by. And other than that, thank you everybody so much for attending, and I will talk to you all soon.
Delightful.
Thanks,
Thank
folks, for having
you.
us. We'll see you soon.